A 22-year-old Springfield man is behind bars this morning after an attempted robbery on Christmas Eve. Around 7:35 Wednesday night, Holyoke police arrived at an apartment on Essex Street after receiving tips of an armed robbery in progress. At the apartment, voices could be heard inside, but no one would come to the door. When police finally made entry, the suspect had already left the building. Akil Rios Thomas was found within minutes by two officers in the apartment building alleyway. He's now facing multiple charges, including armed robbery and possession of a firearm without an FID card.